Have you ever fallen in love with someone in a dream, and waking up feels like you're missing something? What was the dream in your story? When I was in my early 20s, I had a dream where I was getting married. My whole family was there, and I was at the altar, waiting for my bride. It got to the part where she was walking down the aisle. It was so surreal, everything felt so real. I was nervous and excited. When she got up to the altar, I got a good look at her. She was stunning, absolutely beautiful. I didn't know her, nor did she look like anyone I know, but I felt like I had known her my whole life, and I was deeply in love with her. She looked at me and smiled, and as I opened my mouth to say something, I woke up. I sat up and with tears in my eyes, and that was that. I was back to the reality of being single college student. Imagine waking up and realizing you are already married, but not to the person you just dreamed about. At least you have options. I fell in love with this French girl named Annalise who I met at a small cafe. We went through our whole relationship, culminating in a trip to Disneyland Paris. I woke up in the middle of us buying our tickets. I still think about her sometimes even though her face is pretty much gone from memory since I had this dream about 5 years ago. I feel you. I'm sure I'll be in the same boat. Can't remember the face, but remember the feeling. I wonder if you'd recognize her if you saw someone who looked similar. Would it jog the memory, you think? I vaguely remember that she had straight brown hair and green eyes maybe? Other than that, I think it's been too long. I feel like I've also overwritten what she actually looked like by trying to remember. I've never felt so sad and lonely after a dream, and I still wish that I could fall asleep and pick up where I had left off. I dreamt I had a baby girl. She was so precious and little. I woke up and I missed her. I would dream of her often. It's unlikely I will have children, so it's a sad dream to have. Every time I've had a baby in a dream, they wind up being the size of like a marble and I lose them in my messy house. Damn stressful. Oh boy, finally somewhere I can tell this story. The exact details of how I met this woman are a bit hazy, but I was on a cliff, she was sitting next to me, her beauty like a goddess, her gaze so warm and comforting. She said that she knew something was bothering me, she could feel it, and told me to pour my soul out, that she will listen. I was going through some rough times, and I'm not the kind of person to open up to my friends, but here I felt I could. We talked for what seemed like hours, laughed and cried, we were there until the sun set. After that she said she had to go, and that she hoped we meet again someday. I turned my head for a second to look at the sunset, and when I looked back at her, she was gone. I have never felt so at peace with anyone in my life before. This wasn't a romantic kind of love, there was no lust, it was just pure as best as I can describe it. When I woke up, I finally felt at peace, after months. I couldn't forget it for a few days, and even looked for her face in the crowd but couldn't find her, and after some time I just stopped thinking about it, but I never forgot. Someday, I do hope we meet again. That's beautiful. If it helps you, I've heard that your brain can't create a new face out of nowhere, so all the people you see in your dreams are faces you've seen IRL, so I hope someday you'll find your dream girl. I started at a new job back in 2017. Got along well with quite a few of my coworkers. One in particular, however, was probably the funniest person I'd ever met. He was extremely easy to talk to, and we got along great, but I didn't consciously see him in that way at first. About 3 weeks into the new job, I had a dream about him. I loved him in the dream, and he loved me too. It just felt like being in a warm, loving, healthy relationship. I can't remember exact details, but I woke up, heart aching, but shocked. I never saw him the same way again. My best shifts were with him. My worst shifts were without him. I thought about him constantly. We became closer friends over the next few weeks. I tried to stifle the feelings because I wasn't exactly looking for a relationship, but I couldn't help it. Turns out, he felt the same way. We've been together for almost 3 years and I'm just as in love today, and I was in that dream. When I was in 6th grade, there was this girl in my class who I fought with all the time. We hated each other and would pick on each other constantly. About this time, people in my class were huge on the theory that if someone was thinking about you while you were asleep, you would have a dream about them. Positive thoughts ended in a positive dream, bad thoughts meant a bad dream, and love meant a love dream. I ended up having a dream about her one night and we were married. We had such an amazing relationship and loved each other and our baby. I woke up and had a crush on her for a long time after that, convinced she might like me too. Nothing ever came of it, but I faked a relationship with her our freshman year just to make her mad. It was so funny. I also have dreams that I am still together with my ex, before she cheated on me, broke up a little over a year ago. I'm so happy in the dreams and have such strong feelings for her. When I wake up I think we are still together for a couple minutes until I realize how abusive and horrible she was. I feel so empty after those dreams and I still miss feeling that way. She was the only relationship I've had, and feel like I'm missing out on a lot of good feelings and emotions. Not exactly that, but I do sometimes dream of an ex that I still desperately love. In the dreams we are together and happy. When I wake up, after a few seconds, I realize it was a dream and the feeling of loss and pain is very, very real and strong. Sad face. In my dreams it is mostly my crush, but I am still putting it here, so each night when I am sleeping and that day I am feeling depressed or down or anything like this, she always shows up and talks to me. She always gets me back up. I hope one day I can tell her about these dreams and that she knows how much she means to me. I dreamt that I was a prisoner of a high-tech facility and being experimented on with various amounts of torture. Every scientist or people I meet there in general are extremely cold and disgusted of me except for the counselor that asks me questions, like how I felt on certain experiments on me or how I lived before getting here. She wasn't some angel, but she was sympathetic to my pain that I felt more and more dependent on her sessions to feel normal. Then one day, there was an explosion in the facility that shuts down the locks on the doors and I tried to get out. However, there were already 2 soldiers out trying to stop me. I was kicked down and they were about to shoot, when bullets were shot to their heads, killing the 2 soldiers instantly. It was the counselor. She pulled me and got me out of the facility somehow. And then I woke up. I felt a bit of a hole in my chest knowing that in my dream, there was someone who would talk to me, that it wasn't just their job, but they were willing to help me too. I met the most astonishing and warm man in my life in a dream. We were already friends. The setting was a lake with very fine sand on the shore, a short wooden dock, and long lime green grass growing on the sides of it. I just remember us walking together and playing around. He playfully pushed me into the water off the dock. I remember having my eyes open as I looked up to the surface, breaking the water and seeing his face. He was laying on the dock, leaning over to look at me. His beautiful green and blue eyes watched me with such tenderness and his curly blonde locks fell over his face perfectly. Curly and fluffy hair as yellow as corn. I was resting my hands on the small key, gazing up at him when he laughed and only said one thing. I love you, before he kissed me. I still remember the sun directly behind him. His figure blocking it partially so it made him appear to be glowing. The rays that were so bright touched his hair and light golden skin. I've yet to see a man as beautiful or bare as him. I think what made me feel so in love with this person in my dream was the sensation of being naked and open. Naked in a sense that we had nothing to hide and felt comfortable with each other. The dream was so serene and surreal. I'll be damned if that wasn't fate giving me a peek at my future. When I was about 10 years old, I had a dream that I was in a bright, glowing white place, and suddenly a man in a white gown stood before me. He had gorgeous, wavy blonde hair. He was wearing a white gown. I had never seen this person in real life, but in the dream, I recognized him immediately. I immediately broke down sobbing because I missed him so much. He said something like, "I miss you too, but don't worry. We'll meet again someday." I was greatly relieved to hear him say this. When I woke up I was completely devastated. I tried to tell my mom about the dream, but I broke down crying whenever I tried to talk about it. The dream was so vividly real that to this day I believe I may see this man again. When I think about how much he meant to me, I still have to fight back tears. I've been waiting so long to tell this story. So all I can remember is me and another man were just lying on a single bed together, staring at the ceiling talking. We were holding hands too, and I remember I felt like I'd fallen in love, and I just wanted to stay there forever. I can't exactly remember what he looked like, but I just had a really strong feeling in the dream. When I woke up, I really missed the person I'd met in my dream, and how magical it felt. I guess it felt amazing too because of how lonely I am. I still sometimes wish I could see him in my dreams again. I had no idea this was so common. My memory is pretty hazy, but it was back in 10th grade when believe. Had a dream about me driving up to a woman's house in the countryside. She was dressed in dark colors and looked sad. We didn't talk, but she reluctantly pointed me in the direction of another woman in an all-white dress. I felt bad for the woman dressed in black and was reluctant to leave her but continued to approach the woman in white. We didn't talk, but she looked at me and I felt what I think is love. I have social anxiety, but back then it was way worse. This woman's presence made me feel complete warmth, comfort and belonging. I've never had the same feeling since, and I felt like a part of me was ripped out when I woke up. It's stuck with me ever since, but I usually just chalk it up to hormones. I already answered to a question with this story, but let's go again. I'm a lonely person. I've never had many friends. I don't really trust people. My best, and pretty much only friend is going to another high school. Don't get me wrong, I do have a nice life, with lovely parents, who I love the most. I don't get bullied, I actually defend myself and others. People say I'm a nice listener and good at giving advice. I was a horrible student in middle school. But I have now straight A's in high school. I'm an outsider, and I enjoy being one. My dreams are big, but I'm working on them. I got interest in writing, creating my own characters, letting them live a life I decide. It was also a way to let my emotions out. I guess this one time the stress was too big. In my dream, I was sitting there in a beautiful garden full of flowers, drinking tea, and speaking to a person who is very important to me. We were talking about many topics. I can't remember the last time I smiled so much. He even flew with me to Santa Monica, a destination I want to visit, but alone. In the middle of the flight I woke up. I've never felt so horrible. I wanted to continue the dream so bad. No, I just never wanted it to end. This person, this guy, was like a father to me. He took his own life a long time ago. I was crying that night so much. As I said, I guess the stress was big, since exams were coming up. My hair was even falling out, and I couldn't sleep properly for days. Every night, before falling asleep, I think about the dream, hoping to have a chance to continue it. It isn't really falling in love, but it's a dream about a loved one. But, I do love him more after I dreamt about him. Whenever I've had a crush on someone, they end up in a dream at some point, it seems. I don't really recall any specific examples though.